Hi, I'm Ben, and this is my review on, or episode recap on Marvel Spider-Man. Um, I forget what the title is called. It's called, Generations? Generations. Yeah, I think that's what it's called, Generations. Yeah, so that's the episode. And in this episode, because if you remember in last time, he got fired, and he doesn't work there anymore. So what's gonna happen next? Because Spider-Man got unmasked, and now he has to. And the school told him he's not allowed to go to school. Spider-Man isn't allowed to appear in school. But now Curt Connors is now the head of the school, which I always think is weird because you can see that there's a poster. If you hear the sound, that's the sound of outside. It's raining where I am. But yeah, if you look there, there's a poster of from the TV show. There's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, or Spidey, and Spider-Gwen, Anya Spider-Girl, and Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider. Yeah. No, I'm not wearing a Spider-Man shirt. I'm wearing my Superman shirt. I'm also wearing Superman jammy bottoms and socks. I can show you what they. See, and it's all Superman's. Yeah, I even have a Superman house coat, but I'm not wearing it right now. But I guess I can show you it. I have no reason not to. Uh, I have a lot of stuff on my floor. I'm not kidding. I have a lot of stuff in general. See, Superman. It kind of looks purple because there's some reds with some purple, with some blues. See, the symbol's bent, but you can see Superman. Now, with this getup, I probably should review something Superman related. But nope, I'm reviewing Spider-Man. Spider-Man, and in this episode, where do we get started? Well, for starters, it starts at the school, which a bunch of robots come in. Sorry. It starts with the school with robots. Yeah, an army of robots, and I'm like, oh no. And because it's like those drone robots, but Curt Connor is the leading principal of the school now, and he acts like a bad guy, which is, I said this in my other recap, but it's so weird seeing that he's a bad guy because in the comics and in the cartoons, in previous cartoons, he was still a good guy, but when he turns into a lizard, he tries to help him. But he was never really a bad guy. When he was Curt Connors, he still tried to help Spider-Man and Peter. Also, yeah, I think in Ultimate Spider-Man, Curt Connors knows that Peter and Spider-Man was one and the same, so that was the first time they did that. But yeah, Spider-Man without Shield is the first time Curt Connors is a bad guy, and Spider-Man knows Peter is Spider-Man, but yeah. So and the school board knows he's Spider-Man from the last episode. That's big, but here's the thing, because it starts with at the school, and there's like new school uniforms, new this, and it was like, oh my. But yeah, then there was an accident, and then. But there's also a funny scene where with the robots did a little disco because Miles Morales hacked in to it. Is that a thing he did in the comics? I think I own a few issues, but was that a thing he did in the comics where he hacked into stuff? Because they even did that with the video games in the Spider-Man PS4 game. But anyways, in this, he hacked in and did a little disco party with the robots, but then the mean robots took them down. So that's the end of that. But what I'm trying to get is that later in the school, well, something happens, and then this, there was an oh yeah, one of the funny school kids, I forget his name, but he looks like Dr. Octopus in here, but the school said, but then the kid creates like an acid machine that was based off stuff he in his lunch, and then destroys half his school, and then there was an accident which causes an acid thing to grow in, but he doesn't get into trouble later on, and I thought, huh. But then later, drones come in, and then he comes in and blue, blue, blah, blue, blue. Sorry. And then a bunch of kids, and then Anya's sister. Yeah, Anya's sister. I forget her. I looked up what her name is, but now I just forgot her name. But yeah, Anya's sister, Spider-Girl's sister, comes into the picture, and then there's like, I'm working here now to see my little stepsister, and then the stepsister and then she's working for Dr. Curt Connors, and then later they discovered that what's going on with him, and then they discovered it's Curt Connors. He's going into a secret room in the teacher's lounge, and they're like, oh, I wonder what's going on in the teacher's lounge. We gotta find out what's going on there. And then they hacked into a robot, but before they showed Curt Connors going into it, and he's like, please help me, give me rest of the cure, which is this mysterious person, and I wonder who he was, because I was hoping it's not Dr. Octopus, because we already saw Dr. Octopus. I was hoping it might be like the Jekyll, or Norman Osborn, or someone else, just anyone but Dr. Octopus, because they killed him off, and he turned into a good guy, and let's not do that. But they built up, and they hacked into a robot, and and Gwen tries to look for the rest of the Jackal serum to find out what's going on. We gotta find the Jackal, her uncle, and we gotta find more. But then later they hacked into a robot that goes into the building, and then they're like, "What is this place? Oh my!" And then it's revealed Anya's sister is evil now, and I'm like, why is she evil? What motivated her to be evil? They do explain, and then I'll wait till I explain what happens at the end. But later, Spider-Man turns into a good guy. No, Spider-Man's always a good guy. But then they found the Jekyll, and then in an underground laboratory, Gwen and Spider-Man found an underground laboratory where, yeah, Anya and Miles Spider-Man tries to find an underground spider lab where Spider-Man went into the teacher's lounge to find a secret room, but Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, goes with Spider-Man. Sorry if I'm bad at explaining this. It might be my Asperger's syndrome, or I don't remember a lot of things about it. I don't remember what just happened. I'm a bit forgetful, or I kept pausing it and then I dozed off for a while, but it's a long story. But anyways, so Ghost Spider and Spider-Gwen went to a secret laboratory, and they found goblin sharks, like these monster shark people, which are creatures called goblin sharks. And I'm like, whoa, goblin sharks? Yeah. So the goblin shark people, like, they're goblin shark people, and they're not like goblin mutated into, like, they're shark people, but they're based off a real species of shark called a goblin shark, which seems appropriate, and he makes fun of, like, oh yeah, goblins. But then the Jekyll appeared, and then he escaped, but then they got rid of the goblin sharks, and they're like, they just disappeared, what's going on? In the tube thing, and they're like, what's going on? We gotta find them. So then goblin sharks So then the goblin shark. So then Jackal ran away, and then they were trying to go back to Anya and Gwen. I mean Anya and Miles to find out what's going on, and they realized the sister's evil. Yes, like I explained, the sister's evil. And then Jackal appears, and they're like, "We all know your names. You're Miles Morales. You're Anya. You're Spider-Woman. You're Gwen Stacy." And it's like, Jackal, you know who I am? Yes. And yeah, the Jackal, his, because remember, the Jackal is Gwen Stacy's uncle, and they're like, you know my identity? Yeah. Oh boy. So they're like, what's gonna happen here? So Gwen and Anya, so then they reveal who's in the tube thingy, and it's Green Go. Oh, it's my Looney Tunes clock. He's telling me it's 12 o'clock. So then Gwen and Anya, so they reveal the tube thing, and who is it? Who's the evil guy behind this? It's Norman Osborn. Yep, I'm glad. Yep, it's Norman Osborn, and they found out why are you alive? And they were like, I survived by this. I built technology to help me. Dr. Curt Connors helped me. I promised him I'll cure his disease, his lizard disease, and all that. But then they were like, do 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 do. Uh, sorry. And then they were like, we gotta figure this out, and then and then they used the Jackal serum and the Venom symbiote, because they were making a homemade Venom symbiote with the stone, and they were like you're making a new Venom symbiote? I was like, not trying to make one. We perfected it. We already created it, and they put it in a tube thing for Norman Osborn with the Jekyll serum. And what did they turn him? He turned him into like a goblin venom creature called the Dark Goblin. Ooh. So yeah, what's gonna happen here? He explains his evil motivations of how the Jekyll and Norman Osborn and how he met Curt Connors and all that sort of things. So what's gonna happen next? Next, a swarm appears, and he comes. Oh, you have all these villains. Who's next? And then Swarm appears, and we're like, oh no, Swarm, bees, and Miles can't stand bees apparently. And then they're like, let's get. And then the villains separated, and they're like, let's go after these villains. His sister Anya goes after her sister, her stepsister. Gwen goes after Jekyll, Miles goes after Swarm, and then they all explain this was our evil plan, But then they figure out, and then Spider-Man has to face Goblin, and then they were like, we gotta stop this villainy, and then we gotta stop this villainy, and then on and then Anya fights her sister, who's calling herself the Tarantula, who pilots a mech. It was like the Tarantula is a predator to spiders, and then the Tarantula tries to destroy Anya, and they're like, "Why are you doing this?" It's like, "You stole my family away from me. You did this." But then Anya figures it out, and then figures it out that it's it's actually the chameleon in disguise. That was never her sister, it was the chameleon. Yeah, the chameleon was disguised her. She mentions like, you got me this microscope for my first day. It's like, that microscope, no. And then she realized, yeah, it was actually a laptop. And then she figured out it was the chameleon, not her sister. So she figures it out that. Oh, let's just playing with this little figurine. It's from Mega Man. Bomb Man. I keep wanting to call him Bomber, but someone else is named Bomber. But what I'm trying to get at is that Miles fights the swarm creature. It's like, you heroes, you go after these villains. You go after these villains, and these villains go after you, and you attract danger. My son lived here. This was my neighborhood." And Miles was like, "This is my neighborhood. You did this." And I would remember a guy in Beast, and it's like, "My son goes to a school, and he was a great kid. He's a hero, and the villains go after you, and you destroy things. You wreck people's lives." And then he takes off his mask, and he's like, "Dad?" And then the plot twist is Swarm is Miles Morales' dad. Yeah, Bees. Yeah, he's Miles Morales. Yeah, Swarm is Jefferson Davis. Yeah, his dad. Miles, which I don't get. Why is his dad's last name Davis? Well, Miles' last name is Morales. Excuse me. But yeah, anyways, he discovers that Miles Morales discover his dad is Swarm. So what's gonna happen onward there? So David begins to cry, and then he laughs. He's like, "No, what have I done?" And he laughs, horrified. So then he discovers that. So then Gwen tries to fight Jekyll. It's like, "I worship you. You're my role model. How do you think it hurt Dad, a cop who discovered that his own brother was a supervillain? Do you know how much that hurt him? How humiliated he was?" But Jekyll's like, "I don't care. Then you'll worship me. I'll inject you with this thing." And then Miles comes and saves the day and punches him. And it's like, "I'm here. I'm saving the day." So then Miles defeats Jekyll, and then but then it's back to Dark Goblin and Venom. Dark Goblin and Spider-Man, and they're like, "I'll defeat you." And also, they mentioned like the reason why they're using the Venom symbiote is because they saw Venom in other footage of how Venom almost defeated Spider-Man. So then they were like, "I'll use that to defeat you." But then Harry Osborn as Hobgoblin appears and tries to save the day. It's like, "You came just in the nick of time." And then beat him up, and then they were like, "Let's take him down." Oh, and as for Curt Connors, he's like, "Please give me the serum to cure me, the full cure." And I was like, "I was never giving you a full cure, or I was just using you. That was just something to slow you down." And I'm like, as I was watching this, I was like, "Yeah, I knew that." But then he turned back into the lizard. Yeah, Curt Connors turned back to the lizard and attacks Norman Osborn and tries to. But then Dark Goblin beats him up and and then defeats him, and then attacks him, and then the lizard goes away. Also, I like the design of the lizard, and the animation looked better there, because a lot of people give flack for the animation in this, and I can understand why. Like, the colors are a bit muted, and because if you compare it to the Ultimate Spider-Man, the animation looked more realistic and looked more third-dimensional. But here, the colors are more muted, and yeah, but the animation isn't that bad, and I grew to accept the show. But then as for Dark Goblin, yeah, Harry defeats Harry Osborn, and Spider-Man try to fight the Goblin, but then he turns into a monster. But then he had more ooze stuff and turns more evil, and I thought he was going to turn into that monster Goblin from Ultimate Spider-Man, and I'm like, nope, he turns into like an even scarier monster with more body parts and creature-like. Also, have you noticed they never got us like a proper Green Goblin? Like from the comics, like the suit and everything, because in Ultimate Spider-Man he turns into a monster goblin, which I think they did that, I think they did that in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics where he turns into a monster goblin. Even Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did something like that. But I kind of want the goblin from, like, he wears a costume and dresses up like a goblin creature and flies in glider. There's even a scene where he jumps on a glider and flies around. But I feel like they're trying to combine both versions, like Ultimate, like Venom and Ultimate Goblin with this Goblin, and I kinda just want the costume Goblin. The last time we got that was in Spectacular Spider-Man. I kinda just want like a Goblin with the costume, with everything, and like that Goblin. Not the not the monster Venom suit, just a Goblin from the cartoons and comics, the original Green Goblin, the one we're used to. That Green Goblin. But anyways, so Venom Goblin, so the Dark Goblin gets to, so all his friends, he's like, you don't have any allies anymore, but I still have friends, says Spider-Man. So all his friends defeat him, team up to defeat him, and it's like, take that. And then the Goblin gets goes the Goblin, the Jackal Goblin Venom symbiote goes away, and then they're like, yeah, we did it, we defeated him. Also, before they showed Norman Osborn with like some burns and he lost his leg and some body parts, which is pretty gruesome. But I actually kind of admire that, cause and in its own weird way, but yeah, but then later they're like, but then he shows with more body parts, so then the Jackal Venom Goblin Serum grew more body parts back for him, so what just happened there? But then everyone's like, yay, we defeated the Dark Goblin, yay! But then Harry was like, looked sad, and then Peter went to him, he's like, I'm sorry this happened to you. No, it's okay, I needed to be here. I was like, yeah. Yeah. So then they were like, how are we going to explain this to the school? And it's like, good thing these robots can record everything. So they showed like the Dark Goblin explained what happened. Like Dr. Curt Connors pulled the strings and got Max O'Dell fired, and that's what happened. Also, they made fun of the whole monologuing, because if you remember The Incredibles, they made fun of like the villains always monologue or that they're evil, and Spider-Man even point out, do you like hearing the sound of your own voice and like blah 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 blah, and even the Jackal's like I already self-destruct the secret lab, and then from before with the Goblin Sharks, and then they decide to defeat but then they showed the recordings to the school board, and then Max O'Dell got hired back. Curt Connors, I don't know what happened to them. Last time we saw him as a lizard and he ran away, so yeah, he's obviously fired, but what's gonna happen then? So that's it for. They're like, it's good to have you, Mask. We're happy for you to be here, and I'm glad to hear you, and I'm glad to be back. And then Anya calls her stepsisters, like, yeah, I'm still right here. Why wouldn't I be? I was like, just checking on you. And then Spider-Man, and then Miles was like, my dad's beast. I was like, we're here for you. We got friends. And then even Spider-Man, Peter went to Harry and it's like I have friends. I was like, we're good. So that's it for the episode. What an intense ride, yeah. Oh my gosh, this video has been 24 minutes long. How did that happen? But yeah, it was a great episode. I enjoyed it. That episode was 40 minutes long and I explained it in 24 minutes. But I hope you enjoyed that episode, and yeah, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and hopefully you see some new videos. And I wanted to see New Mutants and Tenet, but I don't have, but they only released in certain theaters over there, and there's gonna be a second wave of COVID-19. Oh dear, so just stay safe and drink lots of water and always be okay, and yeah. Well, I'm Ben, and this is my video channel. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I don't know what next video you might see, so you probably might see some new videos, so have a good one. Flip flip.